Welcome to the Horizon Initiative. This is Mountain Blade 2 Bannerlord. Bannerlord, the strange mashup of kingdom management, party-based RPG, RTS, and arcadey sword fighting. It's got flaws, sure, but I have yet to play something else quite like this. Pick your route to power, build alliances, lead an army, fight as a mercenary, making money off of wars, or pledge your sword to one of the factions vying for control over the war-stricken lands of Calradia, and build your place within the nobility, one day maybe even becoming king or emperor. Let's see how far we get. Upon starting a new campaign, an enter cinematic sets the stage for the world you're entering. The Calradian Empire, once great and continent spanning, has fallen into civil war as their grip faltered on the outlying territories or so-called barbarian kingdoms. You're sent to pick your background story, and after going through the character creator, you're dropped into a tutorial that roughly acquaints you with the combat controls, and boy howdy, I didn't have a strong start. Immediately afterwards, you're vomited into the dead-ass center of Imperial territory with no men, next to no food, and are told to build the family name. In this case, we're led by none other than Hjalmor van Gergen, the same name carried by one of my earliest Skyrim Xbox 360 characters, a true hero that transcends time. Pretty quickly, you realize there's no hand-holding in this game. You're told you need to speak with nobles, but with no cash to your name, an audience with the proper nobility of Calradia isn't happening for a while. With this news, I set out to scrape together enough money to build myself a little band of fighters. Plenty of quests to assist village notables with problems are available to you as a lowly independent lord with no renown, so I took to doing battle with bandits to help the folk of the Imperial countryside live more peacefully. Hjalmor wasn't exactly a warrior yet, but he and his company routed bandits and ambushed military deserters trying to extort poor villagers. He was a force for balance in the war-torn lands of Calradia. Granted, that force was like a baker's dozen of dudes with pitchforks and a bone to pick, but it counts. You make some pretty solid money for the early game by selling off the gear you loot from bandits, and the prisoners you take after combat can be ransomed for an extra boost to your party's bankroll. With my newfound funding, I bribed my way into a keep in hopes of getting in the good graces of the nearest city of influence, and it massively backfired on me. I'm told I must go to the city of Poros and figure out which of the swordsmen in the tournament is a spy for the enemy state. You'll presumably have to fight the spy to apprehend them, and old Hjalmor's looking for a way to build his name. I had yet to really fight one-on-one outside of the tutorial, though, and thought, I play chivalry, I can definitely take these guys. Nope. First off, I picked the wrong guy to duel, investigated the quest completely wrong, and second off, I was absolutely obliterated in the ring. It was quickly becoming apparent that Hjalmor needed some more practice. A little bit of patience and a lot of practice later, the Van Gergen clan was cruising. Hjalmor and his companions were kitted out in proper armor, no more rags looted from bandits. We were cutting our way through the rank and file soldiers found in most of the tournament. Wins weren't always graceful, but they were wins. After making a fool of myself working for the Western Empire, I went and offered my now Tier 2 clan's services to the Vlandians, and began the tournament circuit between there and Botania. This is a kind of magical stage in every playthrough where you make your rounds to the tournaments and sell off the prizes so that you have enough money to eat and defend yourself. It seriously gives off Knight's Tale vibes, and I love it. During this, I also became a vassal instead of signing a mercenary contract, and this was lesson number 2. Yeah, this came with a few solid high-tier troops and a very nice sword, but it also came with the kingdom's debt. As a mercenary, you're blissfully insulated from the financial woes of running an empire at war. As soon as you become a vassal, though, you're added to the list of lords the tribute payments are draw from. The gains from winning wars are shared too, and that can result in a solid chunk of change, but still, as a Tier 2 clan, you don't have a whole lot of money to back your name with. It also allows you to muster and take part in armies for your kingdom, and that opens up Bannerlord's most impressive mechanic. sieges and warfare between armies, not fights with another party of 60 to 80. It doesn't play out like an RTS where you have the god's eye view of your hundreds of tiny little dudes. You're down there dodging boulders from catapults and ballista bolts, keeping your archers in line so your infantry isn't advancing uncovered. Especially once you've got banners and companions with perks that support your army composition, you feel like the most badass warlord possible, leaving castles and armies alike smoldering in your wake. You do have to keep an eye out for where your formations are wandering once being sent to engage. Your sergeants don't always keep them in situations where they can win, and you don't want to burn a ton of reinforcements on an easy-to-avoid bottleneck. Sometimes after taking a settlement, you do have a final bout for the keep. This is run similar to bandit hideouts, where you're dropped in with you and just a handful of your highest tier troops to crush the remaining defenders in the Lord's Hall of a given city. It's a fun change in pace from the frantic land grab of actually hitting the walls to a focused close quarters fight. If you don't bring archers though, do bring a bow. There are always Overwatch guards trying to pick off the attackers, and they can land some solid hits from above. I had been tagging along in armies, accruing influence and filling the family coffers. Being part of an army doesn't cost you anything, but can be a great way to build up your clan and rank up the troops in your party. Just don't let the AI lead you into an unwinnable battle, which they will do. If they've had a good run on a few settlements, take your winnings and get while the getting's good. It's not a lot of fun riding around as someone's prisoner while your allies get curb stomped. Now, because of this, I hadn't bothered to pay much attention to the influence mechanic. I pulled together a solid army, dove on the nearest enemy city, and we smashed them. Had a few quick engagements that we ran through auto-resolve and built up some more momentum to the next major settlement held by the Northern Empire. As far as the influence currency goes, I realized I spent some to build the army, but didn't catch I had to keep spending or it would disband, and had a little bit of a kerfuffle. More learning, huh? After a bit of research, it seemed the Empire was the safest faction to learn the game with. Strong offensive cavalry, decent archers, and capable defensive infantry. Since I was already familiarized with the game mechanics, getting rolling was a lot quicker. We even ended up with a couple of castles that I babied into high prosperity, making us a pretty penny. We had a party rivaled only by that of the Emperor Gyarios himself. The problem is, I was way too aggressive grabbing castles up in votes, and after building the Dragon Banner, didn't stock up enough money or influence to fund the literally constant war you're in since everyone's out to get you after you back an Imperial leader. It was hard, but we were still winning once I switched to a more defensive footing. I was making a good living for the new clan, but I'm a sucker for aesthetics, and I love the European knight look that Vlandian gear has and just couldn't stop thinking about my Van Gergens, wasting away to the west as Jupiter vacuumed up territories in the south backed by that warmonger Gyarios. This is where I learned how the save system in this game works, unfortunately. You see, when you start a save or complete the tutorial, it makes one manual save for you. On top of this, between all saved campaigns, there are 3 autosave slots that will be overwritten by whichever campaign is currently being played. To permanently cement your progress, you have to manually save on the dedicated save slot, and I didn't do this. That means a few days later, when I went to load into Hjalmor, I hadn't even named his clan yet. I had no lustrous mail armor or masterwork riding bow. Hjalmor was just a helpless pup, but that ain't fucking stopping him at this point. Our lowly clan dons a new name, fit to pull us from the ashes. It acts as plates of steel against the blades of the world. With this title, we will strike fear into the Empire, make Sturgia kneel, reclaim Sargo from the Batanian hordes. This is the rise of...
the Dimmadhomes!
Hjalmor and his brother Noggin, with the little dome safely rescued, set out to achieve greatness in the land we will one day rule, Valandia. The trip there was uneventful, and we sprinted to Clan Tier 2 quick enough with lucky tournament wins. That earned us a mercenary contract that funded the building of a very capable company of fighters. We helped Ingalther take a bite out of Sturgia and played defense on the southern front against Gyarios' western empire. The kingdom still came out of this bout a little worse for wear, but I've learned how not to get my infantry smoked by the Batanians in open combat, and made a nice chunk of change off the influence earned by helping storm their walls. We took a break from the front lines to build relation with the other Vlandian houses, so that upon becoming a vassal, we'd have less of an influence sink to pull together armies when needed. I have Battle Death disabled, but since I'm quite a ways from mastering this game, and I know your character can still die, I wanted to secure the Dimidome's future. We pledged our house to the Vlandians, and one Northern Imperial and one very influential Vlandian marriage later, we had heirs and a direct connection to the Vlandian throne. We hadn't gotten rolling. The Dimidomes were sprinting into power. We had 2 castles in Botanian territory and ownership of our border territories with Sturgia. I spread the non-combatant members of my clan between them after getting appropriate governors to keep loyalty and prosperity propped up as much as possible, since they were essentially the colonies of Landia and response time from the AI armies isn't always great. We continued the grind of a lower house, and this time I knew not to burn our influence on silly things like castle votes, because the dingus on the throne was going to randomly throw them at me anyways. I do, however, feel a little obligated to mention the ridiculous power curve your character and his companions experience around this point. Once you've got some cash to your name and are well outfitted, it takes a literal horde of tier 1 to 3 troops to cut you down. You can crush an Imperial Cataphract in like 2 hits if your two-handed is above 150 and you have a half-decent sword. Even if you're looking for a more casual experience, I do recommend dialing up the difficulty from the campaign menu just a smidge once your build is really shaping up on your character. It brings more weight back into your decisions and keeps you from being too unstoppable for anything to feel threatening. I also hope at some point to see a bit more control over other parties within your clan. It would be a lifesaver if you could send a companions party to bolster the defenses of a castle that you won't reach in time. At any rate, back to the man himself. The war keeps churning since Vlandia now borders 4 nations, and we keep mopping up that influence from the battles with them. We've gotten enough of a cushion that we can always call on a couple of friendly parties for stacking a defense when needed, but frankly, I'm having too much fun leading the archery formations and the giant armies the kingdom's tier 5 and 6 houses can muster up. I still have yet to unite the continent, and we're definitely gonna get there. Even as the cracks show when you hit late game, especially with the kingdom-to-kingdom relations, it's still so damn satisfying when you gotta hop up on the walls alongside your castle's militia to keep the Imperials from piling in and taking your lunch money. I've sunk a fair bit of time into Bannerlord over the last few months, and I've definitely come to love this mildly disfigured mess of a game. That being said, I'd also really like to see another developer's take on this concept, like Napoleonic era. At any rate, we'll be seeing more of Hjalmor's Dimidomes as he storms his way to the throne or dies trying. Thanks for watching, don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.